Welcome to our May episode of First Fridays with the FBI. Today's show is about the FBI and its special jurisdiction with the military installations. And we have with us a special guest from the El Paso field office, Supervisory Special Agent Raul Hernandez. Raul, welcome.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And I guess, are you from El Paso?
Absolutely, yes. So I am born and raised here in El Paso. I was one of those individuals that was born in El Paso but raised in Mexico, in Ciudad Juárez, Chihuahua, and I would cross over the border to come to school throughout my educational career. I came here to the University of El Paso, UTEP, and finished my studies there. Became an educator. I was a teacher for roughly 11 years. And then I applied for the FBI, and thankfully, here I am. I came back. My first office was actually in Seattle. From Seattle, I went to Albuquerque, and then I'm happy to be back home.
Well, welcome. And what is your position currently with the FBI here?
Yes, ma'am. I am the Supervisory Special Agent for the Violent Crimes Major Offender Squad.
Okay.
What that is that we take care of all the calls. We take in all the calls that the community here in El Paso has regarding any violent crimes. And I'll give you a few examples. So special jurisdiction is one of them, but we also take care of assault on federal officers, threatening communications via social media. We get a lot of bomb threats or extortions, kidnappings, virtual kidnappings. So those are some of the things that we get. There's a slew of different violations that we work, but those are the ones that we mainly work here.
Okay, well, thank you. And again, welcome to First Fridays with the FBI. And I appreciate the El Paso field office for doing this with us so that we can keep our community informed. So as I mentioned, today's show is about the FBI and how they communicate with, I guess, relate to military installations regarding crimes. So what allows the FBI to investigate crimes on military installations?
Yes, ma'am. Well, that's a good question. So we have to be very cautious when we answer that question because we don't investigate every crime at a military installation, right? So the first responders are usually the military MPs, and they also have a CID. They are the primary responding agency with anything that happens at the base. Once they show up as the first responders, then they start navigating through the investigation. They're going to find out two things. One, is the subject of this investigation an actual active duty soldier or military personnel? If that is the case, then we don't get called out for the most part, right? For the most part, they will take care of that case themselves, and they will work it through their channels. If the subject if that investigation turns out to be a civilian, a contractor, or somebody that's visiting the base, then they call us, and then we try and figure out how we're going to manage that. That's when we come in. And the federal government has given us the authority to be the primary agency that takes those cases.
How does the FBI become involved?
Okay, so yeah, typically the way it works, it's very simple. There's a crime that happens at base. They call 911 or whatever emergency number they call. They get this, the Army CID, well, actually the MPs show up first, and then Army CID shows up thereafter. They will then start their investigation. And in the process of that investigation, they're going to find out if the subject of this investigation is either a civilian or military personnel. If it's military personnel, we don't get called out. In very few occasions, we don't get called out. Unless there is a violent crimes against the child, right? What we call, then we do get involved. It happens very rarely, but there are some instances where we do get involved, even if it's a military personnel, for the most part. If it's a civilian, then they will call our point of contacts here in the FBI, and then we will deploy our team to go and respond. I'm focusing this interview on the criminal side of the house because that's what I know, that's my expertise, but there is a national security side of things, right? If there is any type of terrorism, CT angle, then we do get involved. But a lot of those cases are sensitive in nature. They're classified, so we don't talk about those very much, especially in this platform. So my focus will be more on the criminal side.
Okay. So does the FBI investigate active duty soldiers who are criminals?
So that's a good question. We do. One of the examples is if there's a violent crimes against a child, we do get involved. The other one that I could think off the top of my head, we have active gang members that have came to Fort Bliss from other places in the United States. And there are cases that they're being worked jointly with our gang task force. So the answer is yes.
Okay. Sometimes it's hard for people to believe that, but we do. Unfortunately, any career field, there may be criminal activity. So including with soldiers. So I'm not sure a lot of people understand that the FBI can get involved, because some people just believe that the FBI has no jurisdiction. So thank you for explaining how you do have some jurisdiction when it comes to criminal activity.
Yes, ma'am.
Who does the FBI work with on the installation?
Yes, so we work with everybody there, right? Sometimes we've gone all the way up to some of the generals and the commanders, but on a daily, monthly basis, we work with our counterparts, we're at the same level. They're obviously not considered special agents because they have different titles. But let me give you an example. If there's a car that goes into the base, and this happens quite frequently, we just had one where somebody went to the base and they found narcotics. So they found narcotics. The first responder to that call is going to be the MPs. The MPs are going to show up and they're going to do the preliminary work, which is IDing the driver, getting driver's license, getting a criminal history, and then figuring out, is this individual a civilian or is he a soldier, right? As soon as they understand that this subject is a civilian, then they called CID, and then CID calls us. For the most part, we all then show up there jointly to work this case together. We don't say, this is the FBI, we got it. We don't do that. We work it together because sometimes some of these people are repeat offenders. So CID, they have some connection with the base, right? They might be dating somebody that's at the base, or they might be going to work. Maybe they work at the Chick-fil-A that sells food at the base. So then we all work it together. At that time, we start making phone calls to the people that actually prosecute these cases. In our case, we would contact the assistant United States attorneys, whoever's on call that day. And the military part of it, they call the SAUSA, which is our counterparts over the AUSAs. They're the special AUSAs for the special jurisdiction. So then we start, it's a lot of communication, a lot of coordination. And then once we figure out who's going to take it, we continue the investigation, do our interviews, present it to the AUSAs or the SAUSA, and then say, yes, we're going to accept this case. And we take them to jail, and there we go. So that's typically the way it runs. It's a lot of collaboration, a lot of communication. A lot of the people that work for the base know firsthand our counterparts here with the FBI. So there's a lot of communication.
Okay. What types of cases does the FBI see on post? Yes,
so we see a lot of different types of cases. The ones that we've been getting a lot of, for example, we just had an assault. So the people that are working at the base are considered federal officers, the MPs. So we had an assault on a federal officer of a gentleman that pulled out a gun on several MPs. So we responded to that, and he was no longer active member. He was treated as a civilian. So that's a case that we just recently got referred from them. We also have, let me see here. I'm going through my list of cases that we've worked there. We've had homicides. We've had a bank robbery in the past, theft of government property. There's times that the Army has a ton of equipment and different supplies. So here in El Paso, in the proximity to the border, and not to mention, we have nefarious groups like the cartels. They would love to get their hands on, night vision goggles and so on and so forth. So theft of government property, assault with a deadly weapon resulting in serious bodily injury. We've had that. Child pornography and felon in possession. Those are some of the cases that I could think off the top of my head. Other cases are fraud against the government by the PC squad. They've worked some of those cases, and there have been very few referrals, but we also have white collar gangs and drug squads that work cases there as well.
Are there any cases that have occurred involving service members or their families on Fort Bliss?
Yes, we have several examples of cases that we're currently working or have worked in the past of service members and or families. I could think of a few if you don't mind me sharing some of these with you, but we had an incident where somebody was driving through the post and the family member had narcotics. Very simple. It was a family member, civilian, so therefore the FBI gets typically called to some of those. We had a case recently where somebody tried to run through the gate and not stop at the checkpoints. Again, it was a civilian. We got that call as well. Violent crimes against children, which is child pornography. We get involved in some of those. And then just recently, we haven't taken the lead on many of these, but I know you've heard in the news of certain service members gone missing. So therefore we go there and assist with CID and the Army to try and help them locate these missing military members.
Okay, great. Who should people report a crime to if they witness a crime or have suspicions about a crime?
Yes, ma'am. Right now, that's a good question. With the FBI, we have this new theme about see something, say something.
Mm-hmm.
So we want people, we can't do our job without the community's participation and help. That's just the way it is. The more eyes we have out there in the community, the better job we can do. So to answer that question, it's always 911. If you see something that's dangerous in nature, that there's a crime, even if you perceive it to be a crime, 911. If it's happening in the base, you need to call the Fort Bliss authorities. They are the first responders to anything that is happening at the base. If you think and then they will contact the proper people and eventually get to us. Now, you could always call the El Paso FBI office at 915-832-5000, and you could make the report there as well. And then we could work it backwards where we would then call Fort Bliss ourselves. The point here is that you just need to call somebody. Right. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't just talk about it and kind of sweep it under the rug. We need to know in order for us to be able to actively participate and put all these criminals behind bars.
Right. And I know when it comes to who to contact, sometimes, as a military family member myself, I know that some of us would probably prefer to call the FBI first, only because, sometimes there's a stigma associated with contacting the MPs and, for whatever reason. And so we just want to make sure that family members know too, that it's okay to call the FBI first if they feel a certain way, or they just don't want any, I guess, tracking of who called, so that it is okay to call you guys.
Absolutely, for sure. So call anybody, but if you feel safer calling the El Paso FBI office, we welcome those phone calls. It's not like we're going to tell you, no, you need to call Army CID or the MPs. We will never do that. We will take that call. The duty agent's job is to take that call, get all the pertinent information, and then they'll draft a report and they get it to the appropriate squad that needs to go and take action. Right. So if that is something that is going on within the military community, for sure, you could call us directly. That's not a problem.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on to share just a little bit, give us a little bit of information about how the FBI works with the military installation here. Is there anything else you would like to share?
Yes, I want to share a story as to how we're working jointly with them. Just recently, we had, I'm sure everyone's aware of this, but we had roughly 10,000 Afghan refugees from Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. They were housed at a military base. In this situation, it was White Sands, which is a little bit outside of our AOR, area responsibility, but because there were so many of them, there was 10,000, and the El Paso office is closer to them physically than the New Mexico office. We took points on that, right? But I just wanted to share with everybody that's watching on how well we work together with the Army and other state and federal agencies. But I mean, up to the commanders and the generals, they were out there at the camp. And the FBI's responsibility was we were the primary responding agency to any criminal activity at the camp. So any physical assaults, any sexual assaults, I mean, even family disturbances, we were out there working it together with the MPs, which were amazing. Without them, we couldn't have done our job the way we did. It was a complete success. And I think that is to the communication and the relationships that we do have with our Army military partners.
Right. That's great. And I do believe that the Army has a great way of communicating in every department. So we appreciate that. And we appreciate what the FBI does in our community. So again, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing with us this information and letting the community know, especially our military families know, that it's okay to report crimes and to understand how the FBI works with the military. So we appreciate you for coming on. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Have a good day.